I was going to do a gag right where I put something visually odd in the cold open. That's what this section is called before the opening sequence plays. It's called a cold open. It's industry jargon which I have no cause to use as I'm not in the industry. If anything, I'd like to see the industry thoroughly pied in the face by the Phantom Flanflinger, a real superhero who has inspired many an activist to push cream pies into the mugs of pointless politicians. What's that? Being pied in the face predates Tiswas, the television show the Phantom Flanflinger was in. I wasn't trying to imply otherwise, but I think my point still stands. And, of course, I mention that because it's not always politicians who get pied in their face. No, sometimes it's chemistry professors in 1975. And poor old James Bonk. The name's Bonk. James Bonk. And it was James Bonk who was on the receiving end of such a circular shaped baked good to his face one far-flung day. You might be thinking, this is bullshit. Or you might be thinking, who the hell is James Bonk? Or, more correctly, you might be thinking, this is comedy. Did I miss a meeting? And just how long is this cold open? Please stop thinking, dear viewer, as it's rather distracting when I'm trying to get to my point. I say point, I mean, you know, the end of the scene. So, James Bonk, and it's entirely possible you've heard of them, or the story at least. The legendary, probably apocryphal tale goes that a gaggle of students missed a vital exam because their vehicle had blown a tyre. That's not a problem, said Professor Bonk. What I'll do is reschedule the exam just for you guys. Great. So the students arrive at the exam and they're each put into separate rooms. It's a bit odd, but they accept it given the slightly unusual circumstances. They turn over the first page. Question 1, worth 5% of the exam. A pretty standard chemistry question that each of them easily answer. Turn the page. Question 2, worth 95% of the exam. The question, it all hinges on this. Which tyre? It's one of those stories that circulates on the social medias, isn't it? A clever Columbo gotcha that satisfies everybody. Not me, of course. I would have just let them sit the exam straight up because I hope I wouldn't be the sort of person who would abuse their power to punch down on people, which is undoubtedly why James Bonk was the sort who probably deserved a periodic custard pie to his face. Before the opening title rolls, I'd just like to point out that the only original thought I've expressed in this section is that I wanted to do something visually odd so that when people hover over the thumbnail they think, that's a bit odd. But I realised what with my antipathy to the algorithm, my toxic status to advertisers, and thumbnails deliberately designed to be boring but functional, it occurs to me that, as my material won't appear in anybody's feed, the gag is ultimately pointless. I thought I'd do it anyway because it amuses me that someone might sit there for about 3 minutes or so watching a stuffed toy bang on about James Bonk. Roll the titles. I'd say welcome, but at this point I'm more concerned about your habits putting the top back on properly after using the toothpaste. Welcome though, I am the air quotes comedian, some sort of pathetic man who didn't even credit Wikipedia before, which provided most of his opening spiel. What a bastard, eh? Kick him in the ghoulies. Let me just open my legs a bit for you, and this, already in the toilet, aren't we? This is the Polemics. Welcome. I was thinking about when I was a lad, you know, getting all nostalgic for the old country, and one day in the 10th century I was clowning around on the cliff tops of the East Anglian coast. Nothing racist about that, and I was with my pet Stoat, as was traditional at the time, I'm guessing, and what did I spy upon the ocean waves that day, in the distance, on the sparkling wobble of the deep green sea? Oh no, I said to my Stoat, longboats. You know what that means? That means Vikings. The raping, the pillaging, the looting, the redundancy, the what? What do you mean the what? The redundancy? Oh right, aren't pillaging and looting exactly the same bloody thing? But invaders coming over in boats, coming over here. Except they're already here and well established in 10th century East Anglia, so I don't know what I'm worried about. And Yesterday, in the 21st century, I was clowning around on the Essex coast because I'm racist now, like Jim Davidson, who does the same thing. I was clowning around on the Essex coast in the 21st century because we're in the future now, aren't we? I was with my pet woodlouse, as is appropriate for the gleaming future we find ourselves in, and what did I spy upon the ocean waves that day, in the distance? "Oh no," I said to Walter, "rubber dinghies. You know what that means?" I'm going to look for a series of words that go together, but two of them will mean the same thing, but none of them will be disparaging in any way to people who obviously need our compassion and help. Solidarity. Walter just looked at me, at least I think he was looking at me. It's hard to tell what he's looking at, or even where his eyes might be on account of him being a small terrestrial isopod. I don't even know if Walter is male, but let's not dwell on sexing woodlice, because that's a thought you definitely wouldn't want to get stuck in your head. But growing up in the 10th century, as I did, seeing those longboats coming and the boatmen dragging them onto the beach, or weighing anchor and using littler boats to get ashore, whatever seems historically accurate to you, dear viewer, is probably right. But if I'm being honest, they didn't do much looting or pillaging. Bit of trading and exchange, if that counts. And I think the raping was largely due to our invaders' bathing habits, in that they had some, because the ladies would be all like, "Hey up, this strapping lad looks nice and clean, and he doesn't even smell of piss or shit or anything, and his teeth are all pearly, not to mention he's obviously got a big knob, but, more importantly, a big tongue." Obviously, history being written by the victors, the picture painted of the Vikings by Mr. Plodsworth, the victorious historian, who at one point in his life listened to his heart throb through her boudoir door as she was being pleasured by an able and sparkly clean lover from Denmark, which probably gave his accounting of the Vikings as a whole a bit of a negative bias. Vikings are raping gits by Victor Plodsworth, victorious historian. You may be aware there's a study. In fact, there are lots of studies. I'm only aware of one pertaining to the subject of Viking cleanliness, though. That's not to say there wasn't the raping, pillaging and sacking, which is different than pillaging. You can sack things other than Rome, it turns out. So a bit of property damage. I think vandals had been invented by then, I'm not sure. I'm beginning to suspect that you might be suspecting that my historical knowledge is suspect. Yeah. I haven't seen the English coast since 2002, and then only from an aeroplane. I can't recall when I last felt the beach squishing through my toes, the smell of brine, ozone, seaweed, and always a faint odour of rotting shellfish. Gulls wheeling overhead, squealing at each other to coordinate their assault on whatever it was you might be eating. It's a family-friendly episode, so keep your thoughts clean, please. And the potential to be dragged out to sea by a riptide, or be on a bit of outcrop that's suddenly surrounded by an incoming tide, or become sucked under by wet sand as the tide goes out. Mostly tide-related worries around the coast, it has to be said. So, rubber dinghies weren't really on my list of concerns as an English person in the 20th century. I find I am still highly interested in what goes on in the homeland, One thing I've kept tabs on is the fruition of Thatcher's privatisation of our water system, which has directly led to sewerage being pumped out to sea on a regular basis, enough effluent that it presents a health hazard, as you would expect. Shit. So I'm a little less worried about rubber dinghies and a little more anxious about used rubber johnnies hanging around the coastal scene. We don't want your sort around here, rubber johnnies. Bugger off to the plant where they recycle you into chewing gum. Oh, you didn't know that? Where chewing gum comes from? Now you do. You're welcome. Look out for the new sea salt flavoured gum from Wrigley, only available in the British Isles though. I had a crack at topping Bill Hicks' double mint joke and ended up simply masticating. I don't even know really what this has been all about. I have no point to make, no news to impart, no truth to be inspected. Perhaps then Entertainment, such as it is, for its own sake. Mild and meek this time, but I can be chilled, like a vodka martini, like what James Bonk would drink. Shaken or stirred, Monsieur Bonk? Centrifuged, my good barkeep. That's all for this episode of the Polemics. I think any reasonable person would agree that liking the video is not the done thing. You definitely shouldn't subscribe to the channel. You'll be marked forever if you do that. Mess with the metrics, stick a spanner in the works, and piss on their door handles. That's the kinds of things I like to do. And will you look at that? You're not even thinking about how to sex wood lice. Good night.